My cherry tomato plants were growing like crazy. They were so beautiful, but the smallest pests were killing my tomato plants, and I had to throw them all away. From the way the plants were growing, I was excited for the harvest I was going to get. I was getting a lot of flowers, I had some cherry tomatoes growing, but I wasn't able to enjoy any of them. Spider mites killed my plants. Because of the yellowing leaves, I thought there was a nutrient deficiency, but it was actually spider mites killing the plants, and I didn't notice until it was too late. Stippling on the leaves, webbing, those are the main signs of spider mites. And in my case, flower buds and flowers were falling off at the slightest touch. Even some of the tomatoes that I got were falling off too. And they would eventually stop growing and ripening because they were just stunted. So spider mites, they will suck the life out of your leaves until they shrivel up and die. And they are so tiny. They can be red, yellow, and brown. And they thrive in dry, hot weather. And that's exactly what it's been. And they've been taking advantage of it. So I went to the extreme to try to save these tomato plants because the damage was done and it wasn't going to resolve itself. So I removed all the leaves from every plant that had spider mite damage, and I left only the new growth that had no damage that I could see. But those spider mites got to the new growth real quick, and I couldn't stand to see the plants look so bare and pitiful anymore. So I just gave up on them and started cutting them back and pulling them up. And this time I started taking cuttings of all the new growth that had no spider mite damage because I'm determined to save them. There's a couple of ways to get rid of spider mites if you catch them early. So you could just spray the plants with water and that could be enough to get rid of them. You'd have to do it every day or every other day until you see that they're gone. You could also use insecticidal soap. And I usually like to make my own with dish soap, alcohol, and water. But if I'm buying one, the one I like to use is by Garden Safe. But either way, make sure you spray the undersides of the leaves because that's where spider mites usually like to hang out. And had I been paying closer attention in the beginning, it's possible that I could have saved these plants. But when it gets too far gone like this, you'll probably have to get rid of them. So try to catch it early, pay attention. I took as many cuttings as possible, and things were going good for about 2 weeks. And then I started noticing that the cuttings were getting spider mite damage, and this was all happening very fast. They even started disappearing. So one night I went looking around and I saw snails, and y'all, I can't stand snails. Those snails were eating my tomato cuttings right on up. Or should I say down, because they were gone. Snails were everywhere, so more cuttings were disappearing because the snails were eating them. So I either just let them get eaten or I let them die off. And I was done with them. But once it started getting cooler, I noticed that more tomato plants were growing. So I let them be. I left them alone and there were no spider mites. There was no damage. There was lots of flowers and I got some fruit. Some did split, some tomatoes did split, and I ended up just picking the rest and putting them in a paper bag to ripen. So some good did come out of this in the end.